Yeah, I am Dr. Randy Hurst. This video is going to be about anxiety, but more on understanding a little bit of the why, but mostly how to begin managing it, how to tame it, so to speak. As I said in the intro to anxiety issues, the problem building of them, of anxiety, it can really take over a person's life. And it's so hard to understand why it happens in one way. On the other hand, it's really easy to understand. The person who's been in a car accident, who feels like they've gotten through it, they're okay, but then as they're driving, finds themselves stopping at intersections when they have the green light and having people around them honking, not understanding why that happens. The person who, a veteran who is walking down the street and all of a sudden hits the deck, describing a particular situation in which, immediately is scanning, doesn't know why he's on the ground, and is scanning for sounds. Is there a helicopter? Is there a plane? Is there gunfire? Is there, what is there? And it happened to be a person across the street coming out to do some gardening, but was wearing the kind of hat that was reminiscent of people in Vietnam. And it was just for sun. And, so angry with himself. Now that's an anxiety in a case that's more related to post-traumatic stress disorder, which is one of the anxiety disorders. And even though he'd gotten through most of that, years later, still, the brain was keyed for self-protection, and he hit the deck without thinking. That's a real key about anxiety, is that self-protective part of the brain kicks in before there's time to think. If you've ever been in the situation, I've been in the situation of hiking out in the hills in Montana, and oddly, in all the years I was growing up in Montana and hiking all over the place, I almost never saw rattlesnakes, even though we have them. But I did have a couple of occasions where I reacted, and it happened that there was a stick that was just shaped in a way that I just lurched practically. And some people in a different situation will freeze. They just stop dead because of the fear that something is dangerous there. And that freezing reaction, or that lurching away, that self-protection reaction is there to save your life. It's just that in our modern day context, we don't need it a lot. And those are for phobias or good fear reactions where there's imminent threat. But there's other ways that we can have anxiety that take over, where we're reacting, we're worrying about things. Generalized anxiety is where you start worrying about everything that might go wrong. I had a lady that I saw years ago. I used to tease her a little bit about how much she worried. And I asked once, how many things do you think that you worry about what might go wrong in a day? And she said, probably 100, 200. And I said, well, how many of those things actually happen? Well, maybe only one or two. And it's like, and logically I'm going, doesn't it seem like it'd be important to do something about that, because 99% of the things that you worry about don't happen anyway. And she says, but they might. And these are very hard things when anxiety starts taking over one's life. An example of this particular situation is traveling and not getting on planes, or carrying a second suitcase so there's always clean sheets and pillowcases and towels and everything for hotel rooms. We hear about things that can be problems in hotel rooms. At the same time, they're fairly uncommon. And so, what do you do? Do you accommodate it? Do you give in to the fear and fix your life around it by doing extra things, or just by avoiding and never getting on a plane, never going into high places? Don't get into elevators. Don't go outside. If you start becoming afraid of becoming afraid, and I encourage people to understand the brain is trying to protect you, but logically, emotionally, it reacts without benefit of thought. And logically, a person can even say, well, I know this is silly. I know everybody says it's silly. It doesn't feel silly. I have to not be afraid, to prevent it getting worse. And this is the kind of the monster. The avoidance does feel better, but it rewards the monster of anxiety taking over a bigger part of your life. Trying to be logical, I say, from a brain standpoint, the deep part of the brain is the fast acting. It's the self-protection. It's where the fear reactions are. It's the gut emotions, we'll call it. I make a distinction, a weird distinction, but emotions are what happen in the body. They move us. They're the adrenaline. They're for things like addictions. They're the dopamine that is the neurotransmitter that is so rewarding, that gives us that euphoric or that calm feeling, that gets us to want that again. Those move us, but they're so fast acting, they can't think. It's the newer part of the brain that has the time to think about what's logical, about what's a good thing, about what's the right thing. But this happens fast. This is there to protect us this quickly. And it's not logical at all, because it can't think. So my joke has been for many years, step away from the emotions. Step back, slow down, take a deep breath. Watch the video on diaphragmatic breathing when I get it there, or if you already know about it, you're taking a big belly breath, not the chest, but the gut, and holding it, and letting it out real slowly. Deep breath, slow down. Why did this happen just now? How likely is it that it's real? How do I go ahead and get myself to do more than I would usually do? Don't try to take the whole thing on, but take a deep breath, slow down, and push yourself through a little bit. Trouble is, it'll make your anxiety worse. And this is one of the things that I just want to make sure that you know, that if you take any of these ideas and you try them on and they become overwhelming, they become too much, either slow down, back off, take smaller steps, smaller bites, so to speak. Or if you just know you won't follow through and it's bad in your life, or you just can't get benefit from what we talk about or what I present, get professional help. But hopefully, step back from the emotion, slow yourself down. Is it real? Do I have to do something to protect myself? Or is this kind of the monster that I've learned to back away from, to use avoidance to try to help the feelings? And am I really actually just reinforcing the avoidance? And is anxiety taking over a bigger part of my life? And is it hurting my relationships? Is it hurting my family? Is it affecting my job? And if those things are happening, recognize that it can grow even worse, because anxiety or avoidance is the thing that seems to be better, but it's short term. If the avoidance comes in the form of taking a tranquilizing medication or a drink, and that settles back, it goes away, it calms you down. Is that bad? Not necessarily. Unless, somebody's an alcoholic, or, you can become an alcoholic. You can become a drug addict by needing more. Because any of those medications, the tranquilizing medications and alcohol, you can develop a tolerance. Now it takes more to calm you again, or more. And so you can start avoiding more through using, or avoiding more behaviorally to get away from anxiety, and that becomes the monster. And it's not that you're the monster, it's the way your brain works. It's not that the brain's the monster, it's just trying to protect you in a place and in a situation you don't need it. And that's the key. Step back. Do I need it? Is it real? Can I push myself a little bit? Slow myself down and go forward. Go, do this. It will get worse. That's the key. It will get worse. If you take a child who throws a fit, and you give in and give the child what he wants, the child essentially is rewarded by what we do. And they can learn to get worse in order to get what they want. The same with the brain. And I'll talk about this in other situations about kids and parenting. But there's a similar way of what's going on. Little kids' brains are run by emotion more than by thinking, because the brain hasn't developed yet. But in ourselves, we can become run by emotion. We can become run by uncertainty or fear or self-protection. And it can take over. So I'll talk more in some of the monster taming videos, more specifically about the breathing techniques, about how to manage worrying, how to help with sleep, a variety of things. But just as an introduction, take a deep breath, step away from the emotions, decide how you might push yourself through a little bit now, and know that it takes a while, especially if if anxiety has ruled you for a while. It'll take a fair amount of time to push yourself through, and understand that it will get worse in the beginning. But each time you push yourself through and find you can do it, it can become its own reward. It's a harder way to go, but it's productive. You'll feel better. You'll feel good about you in doing that. So I wish you well. Again, I'll say this, you'll hear this in many ways, many times. If it gets too worse, if it gets too bad trying to make these changes, either go slower, back down, know it takes longer than you want it to take, or decide whether you need to get professional help. The information I'm providing should help give good background that can make professional treatment not have to last as long or cost as much, hopefully. Because you just got good background already, and you can describe what you've tried and what hasn't worked, and get some tools for more specific to your situation that I can't address in these kind of general videos. Thank you for listening. Hope you look at some of the others. See you again.